Welcome back to Gap Year Diaries, my friends. My name is Tula, and I'm real excited for this episode. Because we're talking about one of my favorite things in the world, one of probably the best decisions I ever made as a grown-up or as a person, and that, my friends, is solo travel. I love travel. Honestly, who doesn't? Because, well, it's been a big part of my life since childhood. I went on my first trip before I was even 1 year old. I have lived in Latin America for 2 years, and it's just an incredible gift, and I think it's something everybody should do. And so I just want to jump on here and share with you why solo travel, honestly, is the best decision you can make as a girly on their untraditional path. I think solo travel is honestly the best decision anyone can make after high school and really looking to find themselves and what they want to get out of life. And honestly, I think travel can help answer all those questions. So before we get into it, be sure to follow Gap Year Diaries. We are on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and on Instagram. So you can watch, you can listen, and you can scroll to this podcast whenever you like. All right, so let's just jump right into it. And I'll start off with a bit of context. And for me, taking the traditional path after high school honestly just wasn't very appealing to me. I remember when I was beginning to apply for schools, and I was just not into the idea of it, not to mention those application fees, which seem to be growing and growing every single year, because why is the school charging me $200 just to apply if I don't even know if I'll get into the school? But yeah, there was just something that wasn't very appealing to me about it. And I had talked to some other kids who were like a year older than me, and they had similar ideas, just being like, why would I invest so much money in another 4 years into an education when I have already spent 12 years in a classroom? And honestly, I really couldn't agree more. And even though I think that we should always dedicate our lives to learning and educating ourselves, and always just really be in love with the idea of learning and just being a student of life, I don't always think that has to be achieved through a classroom. And for me, I really learned so much just by traveling. I also felt like my last 2 years of being a teenager and my first years of adulthood, I just don't think that they have to be spent in a classroom. I think that there's so much I can learn out of life, and there's a lot of things I can learn by experiencing other cultures and meeting new people and history from other places, and learning things on my own time that truly light me up, instead of making a massive investment into a degree that maybe I won't even want to do it at the end of those 4 years. I'm a very, very big fan of starting fresh, going to different schools and joining different programs and traveling, honestly, because I had spent my first year of school ever in Uruguay, living in South America, and a year later, when I started grade 1, I had basically started fresh in a new school in my home country, back in Canada, in a new school, pretty much my first time going to public school ever. And then I would start fresh by going to different schools for junior high, and my high school was massive, so in a way it was already starting fresh because there was quadruple the amount of students there than in my prior school. But starting fresh in a sense of travel, I think I just really needed that, because I knew that, there are 8 billion people on this planet. There are so many people out in the world, and the 2,200 people that I meet in high school, how can I be sure that those are the kinds of people that I want to be friends with forever, and that I want to be truly connected with, and that truly get me and I get them? And deep down inside, I knew that those people that truly understand me and get me and would be my friends forever, I knew that they weren't going to be always found in my hometown. And so I was really into the idea of just starting fresh, kind of severing ties, just meeting entirely new people from all over the world. And I knew that that wasn't going to be possible unless I had left. I think that also being somewhere entirely new, it feels like there are like no barriers. You can be who you are. You don't have to worry about like cliques, drama, or like what people will think of you, because people don't know you at all. And when you meet new people, it's just a journey of learning yourself and learning other people and other people learning about you. And I think it really allowed for me to just be myself and like share things that I'm into. Like, I'm a singer, I'm a dancer, I'm an artist. I am really into like spirituality, astrology, and like one of the first friends I made while I was traveling was literally an astrologer. And so it was kind of like so eye-opening to know that there are people out in the world who like the same things that I like and who literally make it their job. And I thought that was so, so cool. I have met like influencers, travel content creators, people who have like travel blogs, people who, work in hospitality. I've met people from like so many different spaces and places and life paths. It really helped me feel open and feel confident about who I am as a person, and to really be okay with the kind of person that I am, because there's people all over the world who find that interesting, and there's people who have jobs and lives that I find so interesting. And so I really appreciated that about starting somewhere new and meeting a ton of new people. I think that by staying in the same place that, you grew up, or always like staying with your friends that you've been friends with for years and years and years, I felt like over time that was just going to pigeonhole me. And I know that there's people out there who feel similarly. And I think that when you stay in the same environment and you only know the same people, I feel like it's difficult to feel like there's any room to grow and to expand, because there's people that know you one way and in a sense expect you to stay that same way forever and ever. And by traveling and by leaving those environments and leaving those people, you don't have to like stop being friends with them, obviously not, but separating from them from a little bit and really taking the time to know yourself and meet new people who further help you understand who you are and what you want as a person. I think that's just very special, and I don't think you would be getting any of those experiences and learning those things about yourself if it weren't for leaving and just exploring that for a while. When you stay in a certain location, like you stay in your hometown forever, you're very shaped by what the people in your hometown believe, and certain traditions and certain like ways of life, privileges. And I feel like I can really attest to that. Being from Canada, it is so diverse. Because of like the amount of diversity, sometimes it feels like there's not very much like tradition here sometimes. And when I was traveling, I felt like I could really understand, especially for Day of the Dead, because I went to Mexico. I don't know if I mentioned that. For my solo trip to Mexico, understanding the traditions and the celebrations and how people operate and how people have certain beliefs, it was very expansive for me. And I was able to really honor and appreciate where people come from and how people celebrate things and how people behave when they're from different places around the world. Having lived in Latin America in general, I know how different it is to Canada in a sense, because being in Latin America really opened my heart up to love and appreciation for other people and like affection for other people. And I remember when I returned home, like people did not very much enjoy being touched or hugged or given a kiss. And when I went on my trip to Mexico, I was like, no, this is me. This is what I love. And I love being like loved by others and like hugged and kissed. And I think that's just really lovely, because I know that staying in one location and always staying in my home city, like I know there are certain things that people don't really align with that I very much align with, and I don't want to have to change myself to appease others. And sometimes it's just the location where you are. I feel like while traveling, I've met so many aligned people who really just align with my values and my beliefs and just how I live and how I think. I don't mean like I've met people who think the exact same way as I do and that they have the exact same beliefs as I do, but there's a lot more similarities and things that we align with in a sense. Like I have a friend that I met traveling and I ended up living with her for like a month, and she was an astrologer, and I've never met an astrologer living here in Canada. And I thought it was just so special that I was able to meet her. And when you're traveling, you meet so many more travelers. You meet people from literally all over the world. I can guarantee you I've met somebody from every single continent in this world while I was in Mexico. And I just know that if I hadn't left, like I wouldn't have met these people. And there was something inside my mind when I decided to go traveling, and that was there are 8 billion people in this world, and I know that my people and my soul family and my true community, they're not all going to be in Canada, and they're not all going to be like in the high school I went to. And I can very much attest to that because some of my closest, dearest friends are, from Germany, from Mexico, from Argentina. Like I feel like I've made such deep connections with people from literally all over the world. And I think when you're traveling, since you're meeting such like a big amount of people pretty quickly, like especially if you're staying at a big hostel, just a hostel in general, if you're volunteering, I would totally say that volunteering at hostels and staying at hostels, that's the quickest way to meet tons and tons of people, especially if you're volunteering, because you might be the person who's literally checking people into a hostel. But you meet people, you get to know them for a few days, and then they leave, or you leave. That kind of creates some urgency and some initiative to really get to know people and to really like cherish conversation and activities together. I saw Wicked when I was in Mexico, and that was a life-changing experience, I have to say. But when there's like a finite amount of time, there's also not much of a worry about like, I have to work and I have to get shit done. You'd be traveling to travel and to explore and to experience life and to do so many things. And so when you're sharing these experiences with other people, it's like you're really bonding together. I'd say that about like exploring like ancient archaeological sites. Like there was this one time I was in this one town called Palenque. I was there for literally 18 hours. But I went to the famous Palenque archaeological site, which was the home of like an ancient Mayan city. And there was a woman I met on, it's like a minivan, it's called a colectivo. And I met this woman from the place where we get our tickets to the actual site. We met and she asked me if we wanted to like do a tour together and can split the cost. And she and I ended up talking the entire time, and we got to know each other so well. She ended up like buying me lunch. She was just so kind, and I felt like we got to really just get to know each other and have constant conversation, and we never really stopped talking until I had to leave and go to the next location. And I think when there's a small amount of time to really meet and get to know people, like there's kind of that urgency to really get to know them and to make a friendship and make a connection. And like I said, like these people don't know you, so how are they gonna know about something you did when you were 8 years old that maybe your friends from high school remember? Like, who cares? That's the vibe I feel when solo traveling. It's like you just meet, so just put your best foot forward and get to know each other. And so I think that's really lovely, and that's a great thing I've learned from solo traveling. I think it's very special that you can know people for like a really short period of time, and you can have just such wonderful, deep conversation with them. It might actually help you like dig up some old stuff that you had to work through, which ended up happening for me. I remember in my first week, I got to know this guy from Colombia, and he and I were gardening, if you know what I mean. We were sharing a little joint, and he and I were talking, and somehow the topic of my dad came up, and I ended up like breaking down in tears because it was a thing that I had never really acknowledged before. And who knows if I would have acknowledged it later if I hadn't had this conversation with him. And after having this convo with him, I realized that potentially like a subconscious intention I had with my travels was to repair my relationship with men and with males, I guess, because, you know, I've always grown up around women and been friends with women and really not been treated very nicely by guys. And so I think in a sense traveling was a way for me to really heal that relationship I had with just men in general. But I'll touch back on intention and traveling later. Something else I learned from traveling solo at 18 years old was just how lucky and privileged I am to be a person from Canada and to be somebody with a Canadian passport. Being Canadian, I'm allowed into just so many countries and I'm allowed to explore so many places without having to ask permission to even enter the country in the first place. And even things like running water and healthy drinking water, or safe drinking water, sorry. And I realized just how lucky I am to have these things that come so easily to me, because in another location I went to, I was in San Cristobal, Chiapas, which is the poorest state in Mexico, and you know, the tap water and the water that comes from like showers and sinks, it's very much not good to ingest. And at this house I was staying at, I was there for a month. There were 3 days where we didn't have running water at all because like there was a party, people were, you know, using the toilet and washing their hands and, you know, washing some dishes, and by the end of the night we didn't have any running water, and that was really stressful. We ended up having to use like our demineralized drinking water to like flush the toilets. I used it to wash my hair. I remember one morning I ended up walking to the hostel like a block away to ask to use their bathroom. They very graciously said yes. And I just remember feeling so grateful and so lucky that this is something that comes to me so easily at home. Like I don't have to worry about running water. I don't have to worry about like potentially getting sick from the tap water, or when I'm showering, if water falls into my mouth and I spit it out, like I don't have to worry that will get me sick, because I know that that is a reality for so many people around the world, not just in Mexico, just in so many different places. And so it really woke me up to that. And I feel so lucky that I was able to learn that and realize that at 18 years old, because I think that there are so many people in the world who do not realize how privileged they are ever in their lives. And I'm just really grateful that I was able to learn that at such a young age by traveling. And to wrap this up, I think every single trip you take should always have an intention behind it, because I think why else would you travel unless you wanted to get something out of it? And not just cute Instagram pics, but I mean like, what do you want to learn out of this? What's something like, how do you want to transform from this experience? Because travel is a very transformative experience. And so even before you start planning your trip, before you book your flights, like really ask yourself, what is it you want to learn from this? For me personally, going to Mexico, my main goal and my main priority and intention was I had two. It was to, first off, meet new people, and secondly, really solidify and improve my Spanish, because speaking Spanish is just very important to me, so I can communicate with my family and communicate with friends abroad and just have a second language and know it. That was very important to me. And then, like I said earlier, I think like a subconscious intention of my travel was to heal my relationship with men, which I suppose I can get into that later, but just, you know, growing up with a single mother and an absent father and just not having very nice boys in school, like I think that really kind of damaged my relationship to the male gender. And I think traveling really helped with that, because I learned that I was able to open up to just so many guys for like the first time ever in my life. And I'm honestly just grateful for that. Even though I'm not traveling now, I'm just really grateful for the things that helped me. I'm just really grateful that I made that decision. And even though I ran out of money, like I wouldn't trade that experience for anything else in the world. And I'm just so excited to continue traveling. I do want to share with you a couple resources so you can start traveling as well. The first one is called MWR Life, and that is an awesome travel membership that saves you tons of money on your travel expenses, like your flights, your accommodations, transfers, cruises, so much. The list is actually so long on the money you can save and the things you can save on when you're traveling. And then the second thing is World Packers, where it's like a huge hub for volunteering experiences all over the world, and you can volunteer for hospitality, NGOs, retreat centers, just so much. These two resources, like really the opportunities are endless for travel. And so I will link those below in the description of this episode. And yeah, that's the end of the episode, guys. Thank you so much for listening or watching or scrolling. Be sure to leave a comment, follow, like this episode, subscribe to this podcast. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Also on Instagram at my.gapyeardiaries. My name is Tula. I'm so happy I was able to have this conversation with you today. And I love you so much, and I wish you the best of luck with your gap year. I send you all my love, and have an amazing day ahead of you. Bye-bye.